this webinar. Today is Thursday, the 9th of August. I'm holding this webinar from Dubai, and it's a bit dusty today in Dubai, hot and dusty. I hope where you are and you're listening to this call that it is a little bit better. So I welcome you to this webinar, and we're talking about leading with agility and resilience. And I hope that you like the topic. It's an interesting topic, and it's becoming very important today for employees, for executives, as well as for organization. So I will cover this topic from different angles. And but before I do that, I want to welcome you. So Manal and Manar, welcome. We're going to be joined by a few more participants as we go on. We have a good number of people who have signed up. Ahoud, welcome on board. So thank you all for being with us today. And so let's go ahead and start. As I mentioned, my name is Jamal Saeed, and we will be covering this topic within the hour. And before I do go into the course or the webinar, I like to talk about a bit about Meirc, so that at least you know what the company is all about and everything. So allow me to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it. But before I also jump into the slides, I want to let you know that we have some questions that we would like you to participate in. They are very easy questions. We call them polls. So we're going to be polling you to answer, and this will improve the participations throughout the webinar. And we will share with you the results of these polls or questions that you answer. So here we go. Again, this is a quick review of the company, who we are and everything. So you're listening to a webinar from Meirc Training and Consulting, and I am a partner at Meirc. What is the company all about? Well, Meirc was founded in 1958. We're headquartered in Dubai since 1991. The company was established in Beirut, and we offer many topics: management topics, leadership topics, the project management topics, HR topics, logistics and manufacturing topics, communication, soft skills. And as you can see on the right hand side, right over here, we also have another sister company that we created in 2014. It's called Plus Training, and this company is more specialized, and we focus here on more industry specific courses. So these two companies, they complement each other. And do look us up on the website, www.meirc.com. Meirc, as you can see from the name, M-E-I-R-C. And both courses for both entities are listed there. And if you have any questions, do let us know how we can help you, assist you in terms of joining us in these courses. What does the company stand for? Again, as you can see here, Meirc is pretty much the name of the company right over here, as you can see. This was not the case. The original name stood for something else, but we decided to let the name reflect our values. And as you can see here, we have our vision, and we have our slogan, and of course we have our mission over here. And we are very keen on this, and we do our best to make sure we deliver against these values, mission, and mission statement. These are the different topics that we cover. The 200 plus topics that we have are distributed across the different categories, different portfolios. So, and again, these portfolios are reflected on our websites. Please make sure that when you go there, if you have any questions, you can contact us, or someone in the chatting room might be able to assist you as well. So our websites are equipped with chatting and all kind of facilities that will make your experience as pleasant as possible. So a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, my name is Jamal Saeed, and I have been with the company since August 2012. I have electrical engineering background as well as a master's in business administration. I worked for Pepsi, as you can see from the slide. I also worked for Sun Microsystem, and I worked for Cisco. So you can say that I worked for the corporate world quite a bit, and my experience covered many activities, from operations to IT support to management to leadership to planning. So I have a well-rounded experience that allowed me to work for Meirc and share with you my experience as well. And this is pretty much, this is a little bit more here about the skills that I cover. And as you can see, I'm an avid and passionate cyclist, so I like to cycle quite a bit. And so this is a bit about my background. Let me share with you what the objectives are of this webinar. And on this webinar, we will be talking about the following. First of all, explaining the importance of agile organization, how to lead them. The second objective is how to anticipate and adapt to change with agility and resilience. As you can see, we introduced two topics over here. We have the agility side and we have the resilience side. And then how to develop response mechanisms to an ever-changing environment. As you can see today, the environment, the business environment is changing quite a bit. So how do we deal with these changes? And then, of course, we have the how do we put strategies to lead and drive change, and we talk about agile communication, and last but not least is how to build and enhance agility and resilience in your organization. So most of the courses that we provide are normally most of the courses that we provide are covered through blended learning. So in case you join us on these courses, the courses will be supported by blended learning, so you can go online as well. After you attend the courses with us, you can always go online and attend these courses as well. So here we go. So let me go ahead and start. Let's start first of all with defining agility and resilience. But before I do that, I'd like to ask you a question. So you have to answer true or false. Agility is the ability to successfully cope with changes in the environment situation. So now I'm going to share with you the poll. Go ahead, please, and try to answer. Try to answer on your screen, okay, whether this is true or false. Let's see. Okay, we have already a reply, which is fantastic. And some of you might be having a bit of an issue accessing these polls, but try to see if you can answer some of these questions. All right. So okay, so there you go. We have two replies. Well done, you guys. So I think that Manal and Manar are very active, and both of you answered correctly. So well done. And I'm going to share with you the results. So both of you said correct, and that's very, very good. Well done to both of you. And so now what I will do is I will go ahead and stop the sharing and move on to my slides. So what are we talking about here? Look what's happening. What are newspapers telling us about agility and resilience? Look, this thing about agility and resilience has become quite important. I mean, if you look at the Forbes magazine or the New York magazine newspaper or Bloomberg, all of them are highlighting agility as something very important for leadership. The same thing on resilience. So all of the newspapers and magazines are highlighting these topics as something very important for any organization to survive today. All right. So what does it say? This means that what is agility and why do we need agility? Well, as you know, in order to achieve success today, you need to work in a dynamic environment. As you can see here, this is the dynamic environment. You also have to deal with complexity. So the environment we live in is becoming more and more complex. Sometimes the future is not as predictable as it used to be. So we have to deal with unknown futures. We also have to deal a lot with unpredictable states. We also have to deal with changing situations, which are changing quite a bit. And of course, we also have to deal with circumstances that are becoming more and more diverse. And then, of course, unfamiliar situations, risks that are taking place, tasks and purposes that are changing, and sometimes we have loss and damage and threats. So as you can see, the environment that we are in today is less predictable than what we had 10, 15 years or maybe 20 years back. Things are moving very, very fast and they are changing quite a bit. Now, so what needs to be agile? We know that agility is becoming important, but what needs to be agile? Well, when you are dealing with agility, your organization has to be agile. Your systems have to be agile. The people have to be agile. Imagine. So you were talking about almost everything. The processes that people use have to be agile. And of course, your plans, whether they are strategic or operational, also have to be agile. The organizational architecture and the architecture of your organization also have to build agility into it. And then, of course, the tools and the cultures and the acquisitions and lots of things. So when you are dealing with such an agile and changing environment, you also have to adapt by building a structure, building an architecture that's agile and able to deal with this agility and this continuous change that's taking place. So what are the capabilities that we see, agile capabilities that we usually recommend? Now, being agile requires both the ability to and in a timely manner to recognize and to respond appropriately. So both of you answered very, very well. So well done to both of you. So this is the reply to the answer that they asked. So if you would like to be agile, you have to recognize a relevant change in the environment and you have to respond appropriately. Well, what does it mean? Well, basically, being agile includes one or more of the following. You have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, you have to be responsive, you have to know how to survive, resilience, but at the same time, you also have to be nimble, innovative. You have to know how to learn new things. And this is very, very important today. And of course, you have to be tolerant. Tolerant means this means that you can put up. You can put up with things as they change around you. And then, of course, sometimes you have to do lots of re-engineering to the workplace or the processes that you have. So agility is becoming quite demanding and resilience as well. But if you deal with it and you know how to deal with it, it won't be as demanding. Okay? So moving on, complexity is becoming part of our work life. And this means that increased complexity translates to greater difficulty. It also brings uncertainty. And of course, this means that we have to respond to this uncertainty. This means agility. This means that you have to have better command and control of the arrangement around you. You have to hire people who are able to understand agility or are agile. You also have to build organizations that are agile. Systems have to be agile. And whatever you acquire or put in new processes, they also have to be agile. And you can imagine it goes on and on. Now, key requirement for the 21st century. And you know, ever since we got into the 21st century, things have changed quite a bit. And as you can see from the definition of agility, is the ability to successfully cope with change in the environment. So whatever environment it is, the situation you're in or the environment you're in, you have to deal with this, you know, with the situation that you're in. And this is something that the 21st century have brought with it. This means that the degradations or loss of capability, change in objectives, change in coalitions. This means that you have to also maintain all of this. You have to maintain a high level of performance, effectiveness, efficiency. I mean, I wish they tell us that, look, your agility has increased, but it's okay if you don't perform. It doesn't work that way. Despite all the changes, we still have to maintain a high level of performance, high level of effectiveness, and high level of efficiency. This means that you have to have timely recognition of the situation. You have to make sure that you have the appropriate response at the right time, and you have to make sure that you time your response very well. So as you can see, despite all the changes, there's no let up in this one, and you still have to do these things. So how do we build this? Now, when we talk about the factors that impact the environment today, you know, we are talking about globalization. I mean, yes, sometimes we hear that globalization is getting less, but as a matter of fact, it's still there. We have to work with it. We are working with flatter and leaner organizations. So the organization is not as deep as anymore. Technology. I mean, I'm sure that you are technology users and you use technologies almost on a daily basis. The same thing with this one. So technology is changing our lives in a very big way. Innovation, as you can imagine, innovation is happening on very, very fast pace. So we also have to be aware of these things. And then, of course, mergers and acquisitions. Many companies are buying other companies. I mean, every day I open the newspaper and I see that this company has bought another company. Simply because sometimes coping with the change, it requires that you buy another company that has the skills, that has the ability to deal with something new. So instead of reinventing something from scratch, you buy another company. And then, of course, you have the marketplace disruptions. And I'm confident that you know of many, many marketplace disruptions. So marketplace disruptions, an example, I wonder if you can give me some examples of marketplace disruptions. I don't know, for example, can you give me an example, Manal? Can you think of a company that is disrupting all of these, market changes? I can think of a couple, but I mean, some of the companies that are changing all of these things. One, you have Amazon. Amazon's changing quite a bit. The market is changing with Amazon in the market. We have Uber is changing lots of things. E-commerce, well done. E-commerce is changing lots of things. Well done, Manan. We also have Airbnb is changing the market of hospitality, the hospitality business. So as you can imagine, there are lots of disruptions taking place in the market, and companies have to deal with these things. So I like to introduce a very interesting concept here. This concept is very, very important. It's called the VUCA concept. Why? Because this is what's happening today. The environment is very volatile. The environment is very uncertain. The environment is very complex, and the environment has lots of ambiguity. So that's why the market is dealing with lots of with VUCA. Okay, so if you want to imagine a situation, that's what's happening on a daily basis. And all of these things are happening across these different segments, from growth in the emerging market, innovation, mergers and acquisitions, customer loyalty, and everything. And and by the way, it's no longer the strongest of the species that survives. It's the most intelligent. And this is very, very important that we keep that in mind. Is that how can we survive by using our intelligence, not necessarily our strength? So today, with the fact that organizations need to be nimble, they have to be very light, they have to be, working with this VUCA concept, you have to focus on 3 key pillars. These pillars are around talent, culture, and agility. And I will cover through the slides that we have these 3 concepts, to some extent, of course. We cover them very well in the course, but I will try to give you a flavor of these 3 concepts in one way or another. So one of the key things here is that when we are dealing with these three pillars, learning agility is very, very critical. How do you learn these things? And learning agility is the ability and willingness to learn from experience and subsequently apply that learning to perform successfully under new or first-time conditions. And this is what's happening in our environment. We see that we never seen this before. This is the first time we try this. And that is why it is very important that our learning agility is developed and is tuned, because now we have to learn new things. And not only that, we have to learn new things a lot faster than before. Okay, so this takes us to the following framework. This framework is very, very nice. The different factors we take into consideration when we're trying to learn agility. First of all, are you self-aware? So this is very important. Do you know what are your strengths and weaknesses? The second one is mental agility. Are you able to cope with change and stress and everything? People agility. This means that are you able to deal with different people? Do you have the right communication skills to deal with people and deal with people from different backgrounds? And of course, change ability is, are you comfortable with change? And then of course, result agility. And this means that delivers results in challenging first-time situation. So as you can see, these 5 areas are very, very critical in order to learn something new. This takes us to the following thing, that sometimes it's a personal responsibility to develop learning agility, but you also have enterprise agility. And enterprise agility applies to the individual as well as the organization. This means that despite the ambiguity in the workplace, despite the dilemma, despite the issues, you still have to learn how to deal with ambiguity, and you have to be agile enough in order to deal with all of these changing environment. So some of the burning platforms we ask here, how learning agile is my organization? Because you might be very good, but your organizations may not be ready. So that is why it's very important to prepare your organization to become very agile. The second question we usually ask, how agile does my organization need to be? So how far do I go? And then the third question is, where in my organization do I need to be agile? Not all parts of the organization may necessarily need agility, but in general, we're looking at agility in one way or another. And yes, Manal, you are 100% right. With the rapid changes of technology, we are, we are working very, very hard, sometimes either to catch up or to stay along ahead of the curve in one way or another. So, what does it mean? Well, one of the key things about enterprise agility and learning agility is that you have to learn how to discover things. You have to know how to audit and analyze things. You have to synthesize things. And synthesize means putting things together from different ideas. And then, of course, you have to make sure that you align your plan in order to work with whatever you're discovering and the changing outcomes that you are going after, or changing objectives that you have to go after, because things are changing quite a bit. So this means that you have to prioritize in one way or another. This means that prioritizing the key efforts in order to make sure that you're learning agility and you're building an enterprise that's agile becomes feasible and doable. What does this mean? Well, one of the key things is you have to work on the business and in the business. On the business means that you have to deal with issues that are shaping the enterprise, maybe from the outside. Could be services, products, structure. And this means that CIOs or even managers and directors have to work on transformational change on the business itself. But on the other side, we have in the business. In the business means that you have to focus on the concentration. You have to focus on the operations. This means that how are we doing things? So as you can see here, what is happening to the company and how are things changing on us and how we are dealing with all these changes. But on the other side, how do we cope and how do we change the operations to make sure that we can deal with the things that are coming on the business? Okay, just to say, to put it that way. There are different models in the market that can deal or help you deal with the requirements to become adaptive, agile, and resilient. One of them is the Bowman and Deal concept of framework, which focuses on structure, human resources, political side of things, and the symbolism of the change. And then you have the Morgan model, which was introduced in 2006, and it works on 8 metaphorical frameworks, basically covering the machines, the organisms, the brains, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then you have the other 2 models, which is the Lick-Kaufman, which is based on 11 steps. Okay, I'll just mention a few, like preparing your leadership team or preparing your institution for major planning. So it takes you from step A all this way to step K, which is evaluation. And then, of course, you have the Carter approach, which is one of my preferred approaches because it relies on 8 key steps that you have to take in order to build an organization that is capable to deal with change. It starts with the first step of creating a sense of urgency, all the way to the last step of how do we make sure that we're anchoring the change in the organization. Now, Carter came up with this approach in 1996, but he in 2014, if not mistaken, he revisited his approach and he made some additional changes to accelerate the change. He called it the acceleration of the Carter model. Now, that being said, let's move on to the emergence of agility and resilience for effective leadership. So we're going to be asking you a question, Manalo, here. Let's see if you can get this one right. Effective change only focuses on altering mindsets. True or false? Let's see what you will answer here. Good job, Manal. This is very, very good. Well done. I like your reply. So let me end the voting. Okay. Manal, you are the only one who is hanging in there because apparently Ahood is not listening, is not hearing anymore our recording. So she decided to drop off. But you're more than welcome to be with us today. This is fantastic. Okay. So now the answer is effective change only focus on altering mindset. You're right. It's false. So what does it focuses on? Let's see. Let's see from this side. Any adaptive organization. So adaptive means it's agile and it is able and it is resilient. So when we are looking at an adaptive organization, are they willing to change? Are they able to identify problems quickly? Are they able to implement solutions rapidly? Are they able to focus on innovation? Do they use trust as a mechanism in order to do things in the organization? Are they able to take risk and reap the rewards of the risk? Are they candid and open to feedback? Are they enthusiastic? Are they more or less long-term focused or short-term focused? Are they always looking at their skills and developing it? And are they a learning organization? And I like that a lot because organizations that are agile, they are always learning new things. And that's why we called it in the previous slides, learning agility. Are you willing to learn something new? So that being said, you have to tackle three things. Whenever you are dealing with change and agility and resilience, you have some prerequisites. The first one is you have the head and the heart and the hands. What does it mean? Well, basically, whenever you are trying to change an environment, you always have to ask, why should I change? Why is this person willing to go with you along with the change? So you have to think, you have to focus on the thinking and understanding. That's why we call it thinking and focusing on the head. This means that are they willing to listen to what you are offering? The second one is the emotion. This means that the heart. Are you reaching the heart of the individual? Are you creating passion, motivation? And the last one is behavioral and the hands. This means are they willing to do it? So these three areas have to happen. And that's why we call this prerequisite the thinking and understanding, the emotional and motivation, and of course the behavioral. So we have to focus on why should I change? What's in it for me? And what is it that I need to do differently in order to achieve this change? Now, in reply to your answer, you did very well. Effective change is not about altering mindset only. It's actually about also harnessing motivation as well as shaping the behavior. Because if you stop here, it's not enough. The change is not becoming effective. You have to make sure that you motivate and you have to shape the behavior. This is very, very critical. Becoming agile and becoming resilient is a behavioral thing. So you have to get your organization to become agile and resilient. What does it mean? Well, basically, you have to look at the different stages. There are three key stages that we like to focus on here. First of all, coming to grips with the problem. I have a problem. I have to deal with it. For example, things are changing around me quite a bit. That's a problem, and many companies are facing it today. So you have to make sure that you are dealing with the problem the right way. Second, working through change. How can you deal with the change around you? You have to work through it. And the last one is, how do you make sure that you attain and sustain? I like the word sustain improvement. It means that once we become agile and resilient, how do we keep it? Because it's very easy to fall back on the old behavior. What does it mean? This is a very lovely table over here. This table tells you about the strategy of how to go about it. And as you can see, the three pillars that we talked about, the mindset, the motivation, and behavior, is crisscrossing with coming to grips, working through change, and attaining and sustaining improvement. So what does it mean? If you are working on the mindset and you would like to do all of these things, you have to break conventional mindset. This means that you have to challenge the mindset. This means that you have to generate a new idea. This means that people have to become comfortable talking about change and changing things around. The second one is, how do you deal with the emotions? And as you can see, this requires lots of motivation. You have to deal, you're going to deal with reactions, you're going to deal with resistance. So it's very important that you know how to motivate people. Remember, this question here is very important. What's in it for me? What am I getting out of this? And then, of course, the last one is the behavior. How do you change the behavior? Through training, through teamwork. All of these things are a critical part. So in each one of these boxes, you have to come up with a strategy in order to make sure that you keep succeeding in moving forward. Okay, here are some questions that will help you answer some of these things. For example, when it comes to coming to grips with the problem, what kind of questions do we ask? Do you see a need for the change? If people don't see a need for the change, they will not change. The second one is, how uncomfortable are they with the status quo? If people are comfortable with what they have, it's going to be very difficult to change. But if people are not comfortable with the change, with the situation they're in, they are listening, they are willing to listen to ideas, new concepts. How do we change? How do we move forward? And the third question is, do they have any sense of urgency about change? Is there an urgency? And this takes us to John Carter's first step. How do you create the urgency? So as you can see, coming to grips with the problem, this means that you may have to ask these questions. This means that you're assessing the situation. And then, of course, when you're working through the change, what else can you do? Are they struggling with making the change work? Because sometimes change is not easy, and change sometimes can be very difficult for some organizations. Are they looking for ways to make it work? This means that are they actively trying to work things through, work things out? The third one is attaining and sustaining. Now that they are working with the change, are they communicating with each other? Are they trying to make the situation better? Are they looking for ways to leverage the change? This means that, become better and become more profitable, find opportunities. So all of these things are very, very critical. That being said, this takes us to what we call operational excellence. Now, operational excellence is a very interesting concept. However, on the other side, you have organizational agility, where you are trying to do lots of things and change lots of things. And this kind of, if you don't do it very well, you actually can step away from operational excellence. But if you do your organizational agility very, very well, you can achieve operational excellence. And there are 4 key pillars in order to achieve a high performance, operational excellent organization. First of all, you work on the knowledge. Second, you work on your leadership. The leadership has to be very proactive, very agile. And of course, you have to work on your technology side of things, and you have to become innovative. So when we talk about leadership and agility, organizational agility, this is very critical. And in each area, you have to seek excellence in order to achieve operational excellence. Now, when we talk about operational excellence, there are a couple of things that are very important. First of all, the systems that we have to deal with and the processes that we have to deal with. This means that we have some sort of integration. As you can see, systems have to integrate. And if you have fully integrated systems that are easy to use and the processes are easy to operate and change, this means that you can be quite competitive. Okay? This means that you have something in place that will provide you speed, flexibility, and cross-purpose adaptability. And this is what companies are looking for today. Companies are looking for that secret formula that will give them operational excellence and organizational ability. Now, has any company done that? Has any company done that? There are a few companies that are very close to doing this. One of them, funny enough, as I mentioned recently, is Amazon. Okay, Amazon, I think, is becoming very, very agile. Another one is Microsoft. Microsoft is becoming a very agile organization in this area. Another company as well that is trying to, get into this. Another company is IKEA. IKEA is becoming very interesting company to watch out for. You also have a couple of cosmetic companies that are looking at these things. Some companies, by the way, they tried to do this one and they didn't do very well. Recently, we probably heard about GE. GE tried to achieve operational excellence by building an agile organization, and unfortunately, the process did not go very well. I'm sure that they're going to succeed, but it's going to take them some time to put themselves back on the corrective course. Now, that being said, when we talk about things that influence the operational excellence, we look at the process execution, we look at the technologies, we look at the knowledge, we look at the structure, and we look at the people who are running the organization. All of this has a direct impact on what? On the how the processes perform, what the outcome is from these processes, and of course, when you add these two together, you have to get some value. So this is very important when you are dealing with operational excellence. You have to make sure that your organization, you are building an agile organization and resilient organization that can give you value at the end of the day. If you do all of this and you believe that you are building an agile organization, but the value is not there, then you have not achieved the operational excellence that you are looking for. So creating an agile organizational agility is very important for operational excellence, and this means that you have to redeploy your resources. This means that you have to put some people in the different location. You have to assign different people different tasks. Why? Because things are changing now. Okay, and the other one is how to integrate the different processes. This means that you have to think of your business differently. You have to tie things together differently. Why? Because the environment is changing and you need the processes to support you in a much better way. That being said, it's not going to be an easy job. You know, transformation sometimes is difficult, it's very demanding, it's time consuming, but if you have the will, if you have the focus, if you have the objective, if you have the vision, if you have all the resources behind it, then you should be able to achieve this. But it's not going to be easy work. It will demand some hard work. Now, this means that at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're achieving your results. Your results are very important, and these results will require a more focus on the efficiency and the effectiveness and the impact on the sustainability. You want to make sure that this agility is sustainable. It's not a one-day thing. It's not a one project thing. It's ongoing. You have to build this sustainability and agility into your system so that you are building an organization that is sustainable in the long run. So this means that you have to ask some questions. What is causing us? What are the things that you have to monitor? What are the consequences or the sequences or processes that are leading to a successful outcome? How do I know that I have achieved my agile organization and resilient organization? You want to make sure that the promised activities are taking place, and at the end of the day, the implementation process followed as anticipated, and what are the consequences. So as you can see, you have to ask some why questions, you have to ask some how questions, you have to ask some compliance questions, and at the end of the day, you have to ask some process and implementation questions. This is part of the evaluation process because it's a journey. You are taking a journey from point A to point B, and across this journey and throughout this journey, you're going to be asking these questions. So developing a results-oriented or results plan means that you have to focus on the outcome. Typically, in a traditional approach to developing a plan, the first thing a manager usually do or will do is to identify activities and assign responsibilities. But this has shortcomings in the sense that sometimes the activities may not be getting you to the outcome that you want. So you have to change your thinking. You have to think of the goal first and then start working your way into the outcomes that you want. So translating outcomes to action means that all the activities are crucial. This means that you have to know how to implement the programs very well, and you have to know how to use the resources very, very well. And notice this is very, very nice over here. But the sum of these activities may or may not mean that you have achieved your outcomes. The question is, how will you know when you have been successful? And this is one of the key questions about putting measures in place. No plan, regardless of what you're doing, especially when you're thinking about building an agile and resilient organization, you have to know how to measure that one. And the only way you can answer this question is by putting the right measures in place. So this means that there are going to be some conflicts, there are going to be some resistance, and this is something normal in any change or any adaptability process that that's taking place. What does it mean? You have to make sure that your organization is emotionally intelligent, you have the cohesive team in place, and you have to have the right supportive team in place. And remember one thing about agility and resilience. Agility and resilience means that you also have to have the right succession plan in place. Why? One of the key things about when you are building agile and resilient organization, you're going to have some victims. What does it mean? This means that there are certain people who will leave the organization because they cannot cope with all the changes. So it's very important that you build a succession plan. And the succession plan is important regardless of whether people are leaving or not, because the succession plan gives you strength and makes sure that you have the resilience to sustain changes in the long run. So this means that whenever you have a succession plan, you are able to minimize the risk, you are able to maximize opportunity, and you are able to sustain an agile organization. Now, here comes the third question. So we're moving now to this. The following question is, how do we get confidence and action into place? So I'm going to ask you the following question. And the question is, as many as 34% of employees who quit a job cited a lack or limited appreciation of their contribution as the reason. True or false? So here comes the question. Let's see if you're going to answer it correctly or not. Well done. Good job, Manal. This is very, very good. You are on the spot, and I'm going to share with you the answer. I'm very proud of you. You did very well here. So that's to correct. 34% of employees who quit the job always cited that motivation, contribution, feedback is very lacking. And you know what? This is very critical to building an agile organization. And this is very important today. Employees are part of becoming an agile and resilient organization. Okay? You know, would you like to work for a company where everybody is saying, I love my job? I'm going to be the first one to joining this company. And luckily enough, at Meirc, we also have such an organization where, we love our job. And it's very important to think that way. Because if you people, everybody is saying, you know what, I love my job, this means that they will take the extra step in order to keep the job alive, exciting, and everything. So what does it mean? It means the following. What percentage of the employees in the organization love their job? Is it okay to do just enough to get by? Don't really care much about their job. So you see, this is what we call the reality check. Okay, and I'm going to share with you some statistics coming up in the following slide. Look at this. This is very scary. Look at this one. Current commitment and engagement levels in organizations. People who say that they love their job and who are engaged, 29%. People who just do enough to get by, 54%. People who are disengaged, 17%. You know what's happening here? Look, this is a very scary number. 17% means that people are wasting money. 54%, they are not achieving the right results. But those individuals, he or she, they are doing a fantastic job, achieving high performance and achieving high engagement. And this is very exciting. So, commitment is very important. And when we are talking about agility and we talk about resilience, you cannot do it alone. You have to motivate the organization. This means that you have to build morale, you have to build trust, and you have to motivate people the right way. And this is something on the mental and the emotional condition of the employee. This means that engagement. So employees have to be engaged. And in a nutshell, if we would like to define what engaged employees are those who are mentally and emotionally invested in their work and are contributing to their employer success, the 29% which I mentioned. And this is very, very, very critical. Engagement today is very important to build the agile and the resilient organization. So, what is the impact of employee engagement? Well, look at this one. Those employees who are most committed and engaged perform 20% better and are 87% less likely to leave the organization. You know, when people leave the organization, it's very costly. And when people are not engaged, it's also very costly because they are not doing their job. So that is why when you have agile organization, it's very important that you motivate people. You have to motivate people because that demands change in behavior, change in attitude, and this is very important to be supportive at this stage. So, organizational culture, this is where culture becomes an important part of the whole thing because culture, you have to change the culture here. And the culture in many ways is the sum of values, virtues, and political environment and behavioral norms. This means that you have to not only change the behavior of one person, you are changing the behavior of the entire organization. In short, way that we do things around here. And I like to focus on the we and not the I. It is a collective effort that everybody has to put toward the organization. So, what is a culture? If we think about it, when we are building an agile organization, you have to change the culture. This means that what kind of words do we use? How do we make decisions? What are the promotions that, how are promotions determined? What is more of, what is focused on more in the organization? How are things rewarded in the organization, and so on and so forth? These are very, very tough questions. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's very important that you build the right culture in order to develop the right employee engagement in order to achieve the high performance that we aspire for. So as you can see, Manal, this is very, very, very critical here. Okay. That being said, what is motivation? It is how we make sure that people are doing their job because they want to and they are committed to. And as Stephen Covey said in his, in one of his books, motivation is a fire from within. If someone else tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn very, very briefly. You have to burn that fire. And on the other side, something from Frederick Herzberg, also another famous scholar in the field of management and people motivation. Motivation is a function of growth from getting intrinsic rewards out of interesting and challenging work. So how do you keep the work environment interesting and challenging? Motivation is based on growth needs. It is an internal engine. Look, one more time, internal, and it is something from within. So everybody will tell you that if you want to build an agile and resilient organization, you can motivate from the inside, from the outside, but the best motivation is when you build it from the inside. And this is very critical. So this takes us to the motivation ladder. What does it mean? A motivation ladder, basically, that's where you start. You start with the pay salary, the job fitness and everything. And then you move to the external commitment where you give prizes, awards, celebrations of money. But the last one is the most important thing, where the person is driving himself or herself. They are growing, they are being recognized, they have a sense of achievement, they have very strong social interaction, they are very responsible, and they know how to do the job by themselves. So this is what we call the motivation ladder. And this means that when we are talking about high performance organization, we are talking about a motivated organization, an engaged organization. And this means that greater than, and this is something very critical. If you have this in place, if you have these two in place, this means that 1/3 of the employees are consistently exceeding the expectations. The average worker performs higher than the industry. Strong emotional commitment exists in the organization. Collective performance is very, very evident in the organization. And leaders believe that people are the most important asset in the organization. So if you have these things in your organization, Manal, then congratulations. This is very, very good. And remember, this is important that you look at the following. Look at this one here. Strong emotional commitment, collective performance. This means that we have teamwork over here, as well as 1/3 of the employees are consistently exceeding the expectations. If you have such an organization, you have an outstanding organization. Okay. Now, one of the key things you mentioned, Manal, here is that to assess the gap between the top management and the employee, I agree with you. And this is part of the evaluation. You have to look at the gap between the employees and the management. And one thing we mentioned at the beginning is that organizational structure are becoming they are not as deep as before. They're becoming more shallow. They're becoming more less complicated. Why? Because a complex environment needs to move very fast. And if you have a very, very heavy organization, it doesn't move as much. One of the companies that I fully respect, and I worked for them for almost 8 years of my life, PepsiCo International, or PepsiCo in this case. I worked for the international side of things, but PepsiCo is a very interesting company. because they also have this kind of a culture. They focus a lot on high performance and on the motivation of its employees. And I think they have done a very good job in this area. Now, moving on, this means that what's the problem with motivation then? Well, as much as 34% of the employees who quit the job, they said, you know what, we are not appreciated in the workplace. And this is very sad. And you know what? Appreciation does cost much. As a matter of fact, it is one of the most affordable ways of motivation. Why? Because it has to be personalized and it has to be instant. And this is something about motivation that many managers and leaders forget, is that if you make it a personal motivation and you do it at the right time, you know, a manager is doing a very good job. This means that when we are looking at opportunities to motivate people or to praise, there's nothing wrong if you correct people. There's something wrong if you praise less. What we're asking organizations to do is keep correcting. We don't have an issue, but praise more. And this is very, very critical. And remember this one. This goes a long distance in building engagement. People who give and participate in their feedback about the processes and the future of the company, people who can make a difference in the workplace, and this means that they are willing to deal with all the changes around the organization. Why? Because they love being in that organization. That being said, leadership has to play a very important role. Leadership has to understand the importance of agility and resilience today. They have to be ready to change and to drive change in the organization. This means that, you know, they have to build that organization that's resilient and it's able to be dynamic enough to deal with the different changes around it. So resilience is very important. So in addition to agility, you have to build that resilient organization. So if you would like to think of a comparison, agile person is somebody who can, you know, run very fast, very light, but if they fall down, what happens? Do they get up? That's resilience. Resilience is your ability to get up and you continue the journey. And that's what leaders have to do today. They have to bring that balance between the agility and resilience in order to make sure that the journey of the change that they see is accomplished. So, one of the key things about the things that leaders have to focus on is empowerment is very critical today, and building relationships is very important. What is the relationship between the personality and the demands of the job? Do we have the right match over there? Are we able to cope well with the workload? So all of these questions leaders have to look at today. This means that also they have to look at innovation, because this is very important part of the work environment today. Agile organizations, they know how to innovate. They know how to improvise. They have to come up with new ideas. Otherwise, somebody else will do it and they will become outdated in the market. So how do we build resilience in the workplace? Well, one of the things is that we look at the well-being of the organization. Are employees happy? Are employees, do they know their self-worth? Are they self-efficient? Are they motivated? Are they able to achieve their goals? Do they know how to empower themselves and can they make decisions? Are they in control of their future and their goals and objectives? And do they have very good relationship with their colleagues? Collegiality means working in teams and everything. And this is enhancing the capacity of the organization overall. And at the end of the day, this means resilience. So as you can see, there are several factors that play here in order to achieve that resilience that companies are looking for. So how do we use resilience? Well, one of them is how to overcome obstacles, how to steer things on a daily basis away from adversity, or how to face adversity and problems in the organization, how to make sure that they recover from crisis, and how to make sure that they are open to new experiences. Why? Because resilience at the end of the day helps leaders connect, persist, succeed, and expand the horizons of the organization. Now, 4 foundational assumptions about resilience is to make sure that we focus on the human strengths, make sure that the individuals are capable of life-changing work environment, and they are able to, you can say, able to work on a style that is open to resilience or is based on resilience, and at the end of the day, make sure that they are thinking critically about the work environment. Now, I believe that we have two more questions. This is question number 4 for you. So, innovation is the creation, use, and dissemination of better processes, products, and services or technologies. True or false? Let's see how ready you are. Innovation is the creation, use, and dissemination of, oh, well done, good for you. So I'm just going to share with you the result here. You did very, very well. I'm going to share the results with you. And this is fantastic. Very good, Manal. Congratulations. Very proud of you. So, moving on. When you have an agile organization, when you have an organization that's motivated, when you have an organization that's resilient, innovation is an important part of the whole story. So innovation is the creation, the use, and dissemination of better processes, products, services, or technologies. And this is very critical today. You have to be innovative. Even at the small scale, you have to think differently. This means that, we have to contribute. Everybody has to contribute to make sure the organization keeps moving forward. And this means that everybody has to be involved in the strategy of the organization. This also means that everybody has to contribute, but some people, they don't know how to contribute. And this is the role of the leadership. How do you make sure that people understand how they can contribute to the success of the organization? Now, sometimes innovation can be incremental, and sometimes innovation can be radical. Incremental means that you can change a process, you can change a step in the customer service. Incremental, you can bring a new product, you can make a breakthrough product. So all of these things. So innovation can come in different forms and shapes and forms. And this is not exclusive to certain companies. It's inclusive of all companies today. All companies today have to be innovative in one way or another. So, however, individual effort is highly applauded, but you have to build a network. You have to know how to work in a group today. This is very, very critical to make sure that you are driving resilience and agility in the organization. Because group work is something fundamental today. How to work in a team, how to come up with ideas, and how to develop ideas with other team members. And this means that you have to watch out for these innovation obstacles, such as the environment that you're in, certain restrictive relationships, communication in the workplace, limited tools that you have in the workplace, sometimes the top-down approach of management, sometimes lack of support around practices, and so on and so forth. So innovation means that you have to build positive mindset, you have to be leveraging open discussions, you have to continuously get people's attention on technical excellence in the workplace. You have to drive simplicity in the process that you're building, making sure that the structure is supporting this innovative approach. And at the end of the day, you are effective in terms of building the new behavior in the workplace. So innovation, the innovation space means that the product or service innovation, such as changes the product or service. In the innovation process means that you are changing how you deliver certain things. In the position innovation, this means that from a context perspective, what are you offering the customer? And then, of course, the paradigm innovation means that you are changing the model that you're working in. Okay. The last question for us is focusing more on the smart and social organization. So here we go. I'm going to ask you this question. Leaders are born, not made. Let's see if you can if you're going to get this one. Well done, Manal. Very, very good. Very good. Well, in many ways, when I give these courses at Meirc, I always make sure that people understand how important it is that sometimes certain attributes of leadership are born with the individual, but they remain dormant until they interact with the environment they're in. And this is very, very critical today. So, leadership. Today, leadership is requiring new skills. First of all, you have to make maker instinct. This means that ability to exploit your inner drive to build and grow things. Clarity, ability to see through the mess, because as we mentioned in the first few slides, the VUCA principle, vulnerability, the uncertainty, All of these things are taking place, so there's lots of mess out there. Can you see it clearly? And then of course you have the dilemma flipping. Dilemma flipping means that ability to turn things around even though they are difficult. Then you have the immersive learning ability. Can you learn new things? And then of course bioempathy. This means that see things from other people's point of view. And then of course constructive depolarizing. This means that ability to stay calm in situation where it could be quite difficult. And then of course we have the transparency, being able to be open and being able and authentic. And then of course the rapid prototyping. This means that you can come up with ideas very quickly and share these ideas with your environment. And then of course smart mob organizing. This means that you can put things together right away, you as a part of a social environment. And then of course the commons creating. This means that your ability to seed ideas for the future. So that being said, social media is becoming very critical today. I was listening to this interview this morning, and it tells you how powerful social media have become. And of course, we know how powerful it is, but it's becoming more and more of an influential element in our life. So you have to deal with social media, and you have to be very much aware of what's going on. And it comes in different shapes and form. And this is just a limited number of the social media that we deal with. And as you can see, much more is coming into the market. So what does it mean? Social networking is very important inside the workplace and outside the workplace. You have to, whether you like it or not, the Facebook of this world, the MySpace, LinkedIn are impacting our life inside work and outside work. But at the same time, social networking, okay, is helping in terms of friendship, sharing ideas, and sharing experience. At the same time, building communities. So you can leverage this one to help with innovation, staying agile, becoming resilient, and all of these things. So a new generation of business leaders is coming up. As a matter of fact, leaders of today who are taking on new companies and who are sitting at the helm of new companies, they are very much socially aware and they know how to engage with this social experience. They are very collaborative, they are very much action oriented, and they know how to build an agile and resilient organization based on the new premises that we have today. So, but change does not come without stress. Leaders of today know how to manage stress because the statistics are scary. They know how to pace themselves because sometimes people get burned out because of the stress that's taking place. And the pace of our workplace, things are becoming more and more demanding, and that's something that's, is not going to get any less. So resilience is very important at the individual level and at the company level. And this means that people have to always look at for opportunities and problems. They have to, develop a positive attitude. They have to fight the victim mentality. They have to find the power in every situation. They have to overcome difficulties, and they have to learn from their mistakes. This means that we have to build what we call the hardiness skills. Hardiness is basically resilience. We have to teach people how to become hardy. This means that if a crisis happens, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. They have to know how to recover from it. And this means they have to develop some psychological strength in order to deal with the different situations that are taking place. This means taking control, making decisions on your own, being involved, and challenging, dealing with the challenge of the workplace and using stress in a positive way. So hardiness is something very important. We cannot give up that easy anymore. We have to be, healthy. We have to watch for our well-being, and we have to be careful we have to be better at adapting to the stress in the workplace. We are wrapping up pretty much, so we're coming up to the end of the webinar, and I apologize for taking a couple more minutes than anticipated. However, remember the psychological health in the workplace is very important, and you can develop a very highly effective and healthy workplace by involving employees, by developing a very good work-life balance, by focusing on the growth and development of the employees, by making sure that the health and safety of the employees is taken care of, and recognizing employees on a regular basis. Employee involvement is very important as well, making sure that teams can manage themselves, employee commitments, and there are employee committees on task force to handle changes in the workplace, continuous improvement teams participating in the decision making, and so on and so forth. Work-life balance is very important today, whether it is childcare assistance, whether it is flexible leave options. These are signs of organizations that really listen to its employees, and they like to take care of them. Don't forget the environmental support, from the nutrition we have, the ventilation, the ergonomics of the workplace. All of these things are critical today, as well as recognize the employees. It goes without saying, we have mentioned this one several times today in this webinar. So this is very important that we focus on the compensation, the packages, acknowledging the employees, the contributions, and the milestones. And of course, you should always take risk into consideration. Resilience means that you think risk from a positive perspective, how we accept the risk, how to mitigate it, and how to transfer it, and so on and so forth. So I want to thank you for listening to the webinar today. This is my email over here. If you're interested in a copy of this presentation, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. Just either you send me a note, or you can tell me in the chat here that you like. Manar, I will send you the copy of the presentation, and we are holding the course very soon. One of them is coming in August, and then we have one in December and one in July of next year. And then I want to thank you, but at the same time, I'd like to share with you some reading material. These are some very good references. One is called the Agile Organization, then you have the Agile Enterprise and the Agile Shift. These 3 books are wonderful books. They are written by very, very formidable authors. And then the last set of references are more on the resilience side. One is called ROAR, How to Build a Resilient Organization. The Resilient Organization, How Adaptive Cultures Thrive Even When Strategy Fails. And the last one, Developing Resilient Organizations. All of them are fantastic books, and we will make sure that we send you a copy of the presentation. And thank you for listening to us on this Thursday afternoon, and we look forward to hosting you in the future in future webinars. Thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon and weekend. Take care.
Meirc.com